3, 2, 1.
Here we go.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another week of the Let's Dig In podcast. I'm your host, Chef Rich Rosendale, and today we are beyond thrilled to host a guest whose creativity and innovation have made him a household name in the world of gastronomy. A man whose dedication to his craft has reshaped our understanding of American cuisine. Let's extend a warm welcome to the legendary Chef David Burke. Renowned for his innovative techniques and his charismatic personality, Chef Burke has pushed the boundaries of culinary arts throughout his illustrious career. A pioneer and a mentor to many, a true titan in the industry, David's work continues to inspire chefs and guests around the globe. I also want to give a big shout out to our sponsors for this week. This season, we actually have Dry Ager. And by the way, we are doing a dry aging class this year. So check that out. It's at richrosendeleshop.com. You can see all of our classes. But we wanted to build one around one of our favorite pieces of equipment, the Dry Ager. These are incredible devices. You can do charcuterie. People are getting into doing dry aged fish, duck, beef, you name it. It's a consistent and incredibly precise piece of equipment. It's a must-have in your kitchen. Also, Steel Light. Steel Light has been a big supporter of us over the years. They helped us with all the Rosendale at home plateware and serviceware. I love all their patterns and plates. They always keep it up modern, and they have a huge array. I mean, I think if you go to their website, you're probably not going to find anywhere that has a bigger selection of such cool designs, colorful, and also the service. I mean, they're incredible. They'll help you put mood boards together to really kind of find your theme. So big shout out and a thank you to Steel Light International. Also, a new partner who helped us get the opening of R3, which is our fully hoodless, all-electric kitchen, is in Atlanta, is Waring Commercial. Waring came in as a big supporter, big sponsor. We put in a lot of equipment, a lot of their items, their pizza oven, some of their sous vide devices, a lot of their griddles, induction, all sorts of stuff. And it's all electric. And if you go into R3, I'm sure JC and the team would be happy to give you a tour of the place, but you can see all of the various Waring commercial devices that we have throughout the kitchen. It really has been a huge asset for us. So, hey, without further ado, let's dig in with Chef David Burke. Man, thanks so much for joining me. I know, obviously I follow you on social media, and we've known each other for several years, have seen each other at various food and wine events. And you're super busy. I'm always seeing you like opening up concepts and restaurants. And I just wanted to reach out, see what you were up to, and also see, how you kind of keep all this stuff balanced, because I know a lot of people want to grow their brands, or maybe they have a restaurant, or they have a catering company. And it seems like, you get caught up in the thick of thin things, and it's hard to grow. It's hard to grow a brand in a business. And so that's why I wanted to talk with you about that. But before we get started, for those of our listeners out there that may not be as familiar, we have a lot of chefs, obviously, to listen to the show. We also have foodies and lots of friends out there that have attended our classes and stuff over the years. So if you can maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself, David, and how you got started in the culinary industry.
All right. Well, good morning. Thank you for having me. I started my career as a dishwasher. I wouldn't call it a career back then, but I got introduced to the energy, the camaraderie, the teamwork, and the fun and drama of a kitchen at a very young age as a dishwasher. And it's infectious. And when you're in there watching, it's almost like a sport. It's like being on a team. Back then, you're talking the 70s, late 70s. And there was something about it that grabbed my attention. And I saw myself succeeding in it. The chef I worked for was, a guy out of the military. It was a hotel near a performing arts center. So we had a lot of celebrities coming through the kitchen.
Right.
We had food was really, really good when I look back to where the kind of food they did for that period of time and being outside of the city. So
right.
with the boning out legs of veal, getting in bushels of clams, making soups from scratch, making cakes and French desserts. So I didn't start in Chili's. I started in a place where it was scratch cooking, and there was pride. There was a lot of jockeying around like a locker room during the course of the day with the prep. But then once the curtain opened at 5 o'clock, it was all business, and it was amazing what these older guys who were Vietnam vets and high school bouts and way just travelers and people that what they could do together to put a plate of food together, and it was a symphony. It was great. It was like, I wish it was still like that to a certain degree, because you were on a winning team. You felt part of something. At the end, people back then, the cooks we wanted to be busy. We didn't want to be slow. We were like, yes, 200 reservations. Yes. That anymore. People are like, oh shit, I'm going to be busy. I'm going to be wiped out of my mise en place. Anyway, so that was part of the getting sucked in part, and seeing the opportunity, and the daydreaming started. That's when the daydreaming of what I think I could accomplish in the business. And mainly the goal, or the daydream, was to be the chef of my own kitchen, because that's the only thing that existed. We didn't have all this other stuff. So to be the quarterback of my kitchen was my goal. Like the chef I worked for. He was when he snapped his fingers or raised his voice, everybody got in line. And he seemed to be doing pretty well for himself, from what I could see. And when I was waxing and washing his 2 vets and cooking 3 girlfriends. So I started out that way. And then I moved into, the funny thing was, I was a dishwasher, and there was no room to be a cook because nobody quit. Go figure. Imagine that, a restaurant where nobody quits. And so I had to leave and go work at another restaurant, which I got very lucky and got into a good country club, which is near my home now, and also a very good French restaurant, which I now own, called Red Horse, but it was called the Fromagerie.
Oh, and wow.
It was the best restaurant in the state of New Jersey, at least in the top 3, whatever. And I got to work there before I went to CIA. So when I went to the CIA, I was, I had stopped, I was ready for prime time. I also graduated high school in 3 years. So I had my senior year of high school as a full-time worker, because I had a work release program. I had my credits, and, I had I was a varsity wrestler. So I had my, phys ed and all that stuff under control. So they let me skip my senior year and come back for my diploma. So I had a full year of adult experience before CIA, which is valuable when you're going to school, because then you can cut through all the nonsense and focus on what you want to learn. So I went to the CIA in 1980, got out in 82. I went to Norway. I was chosen to go to Norway by a couple of my teachers to work for wealthy family. And, so it got me to Europe, and I was 20. I was in Europe working, and then I took a European rail pass and went through. I took a ferry from Norway to Denmark, from Sweden, whatever it was, and then I went on my 1-month train pass to through Germany into Italy, through Alsace into France. And started eating, looking in the windows of great restaurants and bakeries. And I didn't have a lot of money, but I was dreaming. And I went up through Belgium and into Amsterdam and back to Norway, and flew home. I flew home. I got a job at a very prestigious French restaurant, and I worked for a chef named Waldy Malouf. It's pretty well known. And he was the chef at La Côte Basque in the heyday in New York. This was in the suburbs outside of Greenwich, Connecticut, and it was the oldest French restaurant in America, called La Crémaillère. It was the sister restaurant to La Caravelle in New York. And they didn't speak English. Everybody spoke French.
Wow.
The whole front of the house was French in Belgium. And we had some Latinos in the kitchen. And Waldy was the first American chef there. And I was his saucier, or really a cook. Became his sous chef. And then Charlie Palmer would come in on Sunday nights to eat, and I would do a tasting menu for him. So that's how I got to meet Charlie. He was the chef at a local country club up there.
Wow.
Charlie moved to the River Cafe. it was time for me to leave, I went to the city because I hadn't worked in New York City yet. And I got a job with Daniel Ballou at the Plaza Athénée Hotel as his poissonnier. And that was a brand new hotel, high profile. Spent several months with Danielle there. And then Charlie called me and said he had an opening as a sous chef at the River Cafe, which I couldn't pass up. And I went to the River Cafe as a sous chef. And that was 85 or 86, 85. And so things were moving fast. And I went to, me and Charlie worked together for 2 years. In the middle of that 2-year stint, I went to France and worked for 90 days in George Blanc, Marc Monod, Trois Gros restaurants, 3-star Michelin restaurants. I had been living in France before 84 for 3 months, also when I worked at La Cremiere in the southwestern part of Spain. So I could speak enough French to get by. And then I came back and worked with Charlie again. And then Charlie was opening Oriole. I was going to go with him. And then the owner of the River Cafe offered me Charlie's job, which I couldn't say no to, except I did say no because I didn't know how to do pastry. So I said to him, I don't think I'm ready for the chef's job because I'm not well acclimated with pastry. And I don't want that pastry chef to be more knowledgeable than me when it comes to my running a kitchen. So I think Charlie gave a year notice or something, 9 months or something. So he said, well, we have time to teach you pastry if you want to go to school. So interestingly enough, I said, I want to go to school. I said, I want to go work for Michel Richard in LA. Because Michel was a pastry instructor in France. And he was really a pastry chef first, although he was
right. A lot of people don't know that.
He was really a pastry chef. He was one of the, and you could see it when, Michel Richard, when I saw his food, he was one of the chefs that you could see a photo on a cover of a magazine and know it was his before you read his name.
Yeah, he had a pastry element, like techniques that were almost applied to some of the savory and even the presentations. I agree with that.
Whimsical and very stylish.
Yes.
And so I went out there to volunteer to work for him for free. And it was the opening of Citrus. And he says, no, I want you to be my sous chef. I said, I don't want to be a sous chef. I want to work for free to learn pastry. He said, no. He goes, I'll never be able to do that. He goes, because I'm not in the pastry shop and I have a commissary and da-da-da. He said, if you're serious, go to this school. And he wrote down the name of École Lenotre, which is Lenotre's pastry school in Paris, outside of Paris. He wrote me a letter and we applied to go to pastry school in Paris. I lived on a barge and I spent about 4 months working in pastry shops and going to school before I came back in 1987, late 87, and took over the River Cafe. And from there, that's where I made my name. And I represented the United States. I did 2 Bocuse d'Ors, came in second twice. I represented the U.S. at the Culinary Olympics in Japan in 1988. We won 2 really big medals. One is called the MOF, Milieu Ouvrier de France, which is from the French government. The other
right.
So those kind of, they're all good to get, but then the pressure's on because we got 3 stars at the New York Times back then when 3 stars really meant a lot, and Art Culinaire was really friendly with me because we were doing food that was very Instagrammable before Instagram and very different from the traditional French plating and or American. There really wasn't that many American chefs doing that many great things yet. At least it wasn't published because you didn't have You had Art Culinaire, you had Food and Wine Magazine or Bon Appetit or Food Arts was another big one that helped me in my career get the exposure. But if word of mouth was how you got your name out there. You had to break the barriers and you had to, I certainly had the stage at the River Cafe, but we had to produce. And I was filling in shoes of 2 great chefs, Charlie Palmer and Larry Ford Jones. So fear was in the air. Fear turned into energy, enthusiasm, and daringness to be different. Because, like I said, how is my creme brulee going to be better than Charlie's?
Right.
The same recipe. How is my? You know what I mean? Think about it.
Yeah.
What you got to do is you got to out style. You got to out. Now, I was also, for those listening, the River Cafes probably get the best view in America of any restaurant, sitting under the Brooklyn Bridge, looking at was once the World Trade Centers and still now the downtown Battery of New York City. People came there for the view.
Right.
My challenge was, how do I get them to look at the food?
Yeah.
And in fact, we had who came in one night? It was Jean-Louis Paladin and Jean Blanchet came in, and they sat on the window seat, and they turned their seats around so they weren't looking out the window as a tribute to see the food, and it was really a good honor. And people, so we had that was a great launching pad for me. And from there, I went on to I got offered a partnership with the founder of TGI Friday and Smith & Wollensky, Alan Stillman, great restaurateur, visionary, and we opened Park Avenue Cafe up on the Upper East Side, very close to Oriole. So I was competing with Charlie in the way chefs compete, in a friendly camaraderie, but it makes you get better, And New York is you could be 2 blocks away and it's a different neighborhood,
right? Totally. Well, I didn't realize how much even the international experience that you had, and you worked with some really amazing chefs in your career. I mean, how would you say that's kind of shaped that experience? Like, how would you explain your style? Because I always felt like your presentations, I know a lot over the years, whenever I would see your plates, there was you had a signature style as well with a lot of your presentations. There was a lot of thought, and I always thought they were always kind of fun and whimsical, and you clearly put a lot of thought into the presentations. How would you say that experience kind of shaped your style, and how would you explain your style of cooking?
Well, it's interesting. I worked at a place called Maison Blanche in Paris when I was going to pastry school. There was a Portuguese chef, and he died early, but he influenced me a lot. I was a stage guy. I used to I on the pastry shop in Paris in the morning from 5 to 2, and then I'd go take a shower, and I'd have to take the train across town and go. I'd show up with him at his restaurant about 4:30, and I had to make all the bullshit dishes. I had to make 30 potato pancakes, like plum. They gave me all the stuff nobody wanted. I'd show up and I'd have to bang out plum souffles and stuff like that, within an hour.
All the apprentice stuff, yeah.
Good cook, so they appreciated it. And then one day the sous chef was on the line boning out squabs. He did the meat station. He cut his finger badly, took him to the hospital, and I jumped on the line. And I was like, I can do it. And they were shocked because, stages don't lose. I said, no, I got it, no problem. Because, he boned out. It wasn't in France and restaurants like that. They don't turn and burn like the Americans. They have, you get 2 dishes each, 3 dishes, and they don't get that busy to put you in the weeds. I'm
right,
sure
there's a pace,
but not the Michelin starred ones. You can't afford to be put in weeds. So it was not that difficult for me to do. And then I started working with him, but he was the one. He did a big spread. He was the guy that started the architectural food. He was a Portuguese guy named Jose Lampria. And a Gotham Bar and Grill and the River Cafe were 2 of the restaurants in the U.S. that started. Kind of, I wouldn't say, I don't know if we copied them or what. I certainly was influenced by him. I don't know how Alfred got into it, but there was a big spread Vogue magazine on the sky, which was super influential with his presentations. And he started. I remember with the architectural, for me, with the stacking of the food,
right?
And then you looked at that. If you did it correctly, like anything, it made a lot of sense and it ate well. And if you put it in the hands of someone that just being a Xerox chef, many of those, it doesn't work. So, you can't try and be whimsical or cute or daring if you don't know the fundamentals and the basics. And certainly if it doesn't taste good. So sometimes
it has to be delicious.
Copy a masterpiece is hard, and this guy did it really well. And of course, some people didn't, some people did. So that was an influence there. But working for Georges Blanc and Marc Minot and the Trois Gros was actually as important as it was for me going 2 years of Culinary Institute of America.
Wow.
Because what you get the fundamentals at a school, you see the possibilities, which gives you all kinds of internal energy to have the desire and understand you can do this and what the possibilities are. But then when you go work for these people that are at the top of their field in the world, and they're like on the building they own and what they do, and you see the craftsmanship and the passion and dedication, it's not a job. This is a lifestyle.
Right.
And this is and they do it. They do things like jewelers. They're making petit fours and bonbons, and they do everything. The foie gras chromeski and George Blanc's finesse and his prettiness on the plate, and the foie gras creativity and the camaraderie. And all of a sudden, you're like, that experience, you can't even measure it, but you can bring it back, and it stays with me to this day of how I'm not that good. You know, I mean, when you say I'm good, but there's better out there. There's much better out there. But they had, they were in a position where they had a building, they had their own restaurants, and they had the clientele that they could experiment on. And so I always draw back on that and say, like, what would they do?
Right.
I ate a creme brulee with jasmine tea there, and as simple as that sounds today, jasmine tea and a French dessert in the 80s. Wow. Simple, but that little. And so I always tried to tweak, like I said, back to Charlie Palmer. How is my creme brulee going to be different? Well, I'm going to have to make mine look different because it tastes pretty goddamn good already. So how's it going to be that? I'm going to put it in a glass sugar bowl. It's going to have a lid on it, and it's going to have something decorative. So I had pastry experience. So now I had the confidence to design desserts. When you'd start designing the cheesecake pop tree and the can of cakes and the things that we do, when we got to the River Cafe, I met a guy in pastry school who came and worked for me. One of the best chocolatiers ever. He's in Indonesia now with a chocolate factory. We had 24 desserts on our menu. 24.
Wow.
With chocolate, and 12 were different. That's insanity.
Good Lord, yeah.
But we had a restaurant where everybody got dessert anyway. We did 250 covers a night. So, nothing was sitting around. But we had the ambition. We really at the River Cafe helped create what the modern American high-end dessert is. Right. Before, waiters used to go in the walk-in and put a piece of cheesecake on a plate right off a carton there and throw some whipped cream on it, and that was considered a dessert. No. We were like, that's not good enough. How do we get up early, stay out later, and outwork our competition? And be more creative without losing focus of the taste and the quality and the integrity of the restaurant.
David, to shift gears a little bit about even from the business standpoint, how have I watch you on social media, and obviously you've had great culinary experience over the years. How have you managed to kind of grow? Some restaurants, it's hard to go from 1 to 2 places or from 2 to 3, but I see you involved in a lot of partnerships, and how do you keep it all straight? I mean, is it organization, is it communication, what is, and do you have you gotten like business experience over the years, or do you try to surround yourself with those kinds of people?
That's a great question. I will tell you, I was in business. I had a company. Let me backtrack. I worked for Alan Stillman, the Smith & Wollensky Group. With that, I took about 2 years out of the kitchen and became an executive committee member, sat with the board of directors, worked in an office in the day and in the restaurant at night. Now, here's a guy that created TGI Fridays, also took full-page ads in the New York Times for Smith & Wollensky ads, and built an empire. We went public with that company. I opened a Park Avenue Cafe and Maloney Porcelli with him. So what I learned from him, and sometimes I credit some of the business guys I work for more than some of the chefs in shaping my career. Because and he pulled me in, and I was always a great cook. There's no one will argue that. And I was also a crazy cook. No one will argue that either. But it kind of goes with the territory back then. Now, I went into the business, and I was young. I was I guess I was 30-ish at the time, and everyone else on the executive committee. These were all people that belonged to golf clubs, semi-retired, wealthy people, investors in the business, lawyers and CFOs. and their desire to do things was different from a 30-year-old guy's desire to change. I remember having an argument over how to put the cream spinach in an old steakhouse from the grapefruit bowl to a copper pot, and having an argument over that because nobody wanted to change because they made so much money that way. And that was making it fancier might change something. Maybe there's 2 more ounces, whatever the reason may have been. So we used to argue about the size of the steak knives. We were a steakhouse chain, right? How much you going to spend on a steak knife? $8, $9, $10? You know, was Morton's got a better steak knife? Capital Grille wasn't around yet, et cetera, et cetera. And so we learned to be in front of things, marketing, advertising, how to beat the competition, and how to stay ahead 90 days on what we're doing, which even with menus and the creative aspect and marketing, mostly I'm marketing with him. They created Wine Week. They created a lot of good things to implement during the slower periods. But being next to those people, it's like taking a class in school that you never think you're going to use anything, or being great chefs in France. You're a dry sponge, and all you do is absorb. And I look now. I use Alan Stillman as an example. Like, what would he do in this situation, or what would Steve Hansen do, who was also be our guest? And I worked with him when we opened what I consider the greatest steakhouse in Chicago and or America, which was Prime House by David Burke, with our dry aging patent and all that salt that we bought a bull. So there was a lot of things you could do with people that had money, right? Steve Hansen had money. Alan Stillman had money. So when you had a great idea, we trademarked the swordfish chop. Now, I could never have done that by myself.
Right.
Because I didn't have the cojones. I always had the cojones, but I didn't have the financing and the confidence to to put your money where your mouth is. And I learned that from Stillman and Hansen. And then, I had worked with some other guys. I also learned a lot of how not to waste money in a corporate office. And I will tell you, we run lean. I'm sitting in my home office right now. This is our corporate office. We don't pay rent for a corporate office. We take the ferry from New York. My New York partners and any of my executive committee, they come to my house for meetings, or we do them in a restaurant. We don't spend 15, 20 grand a month or $6,000 or whatever it is for people to sit in offices doing work, because I've seen that happen. We, at one point, one of my companies was spending $1 million a year on salaries for people that didn't work in a restaurant. And I'm like, well, that's not the restaurant business. That's the accounting business. That's the marketing business. That's a different business. If we want to do that, well, the people that are going to work in our corporate level are going to have their fingers in the pie. They're going to work in a restaurant in some capacity. We have, our accountants don't, but everybody else does. Everybody, our corporate events planner obviously is, so that we save a lot of money there, and everybody knows who's who and who does what, and everybody's treated fairly. We don't have, if managers and the chefs in our company are working 50, 55, 60 hours a week, why should someone in an office work 35 hours a week and share the same benefits?
Right. Wow. So, interesting.
Right. I mean, it causes division.
Yeah.
Right now, we can hire consultants. We have some consultant CFOs that we can farm out some of our HR and all that, and I'm okay with that. But I don't think that if we're all the same part of the Burke organization and family, we should all be contributing in somewhat of the same capacity. And because I being aligned, being a chef and saying, well, why am I working every holiday and every weekend when the corporate office is off? And if you look at we're in a restaurant business, right? Either we're in it together or we're not.
Right.
It's good for one, but it's not good for the other.
Right. Wow.
Because I'm from the trenches, I see what other people see. As you become an owner and entrepreneur, I see both sides of it. I respect what a front of the house person has to give and why they're in the business, as opposed to when the passion and from what a back of the house is, and that's the way it is. There's a disparity in income for sure, which hopefully that'll work itself out one day. But it doesn't make sense that a waiter can make $50 an hour and a cook's making 20. I'm going to
have a conversation with our accountant and attorney and everybody and tell them they're going to come in and help out for Mother's Day brunch.
They can dice them. But you know
Well,
what I'm
that's,
saying?
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, really, you look at so many places, especially during the pandemic, they're really kind of stepping back and reflecting about like how much people spend on offices, and are people really any more productive in that model versus, you know, the new one. How has like the last couple of years impacted you, like with as far as like, have you changed things after the pandemic? Like, has recruiting become harder? I mean, has there been any things that you've kind of had to kind of adjust over the last couple of years?
Well, the pandemic was hard. We had to eat a lot of crow because the employees were in a power position because they didn't have enough of them, so they could demand higher wages. The government was enticing them to collect unemployment. So the people in Jersey, I'm talking, New York was closed down. We got hit hard in New York, but New Jersey, we were lucky that we got open on the summer season at whatever 25 or 50%, which really meant 60, 70% because you had outdoor seating. So we survived. We had cash flow. We got through, but our payroll was high because people were getting poached. But the word hospitality didn't exist amongst our competitors because everyone was stealing people. Usually, you call someone and say, "Hey, listen, I got two of you guys here looking for a job. You know, maybe you want to talk to them. I'll take one." No, it was like they were fleecing and offering cash because people wanted to make cash. They were collecting unemployment. It was very difficult. We stuck it out. We expanded during the pandemic. We took on more projects, people that were closing, and we're like, we can take this on. We can rebuild this particular restaurant and get going. We opened in Saudi Arabia during the pandemic. We also opened several other restaurants in Charlotte, and we continue to expand there. So we took the opportunity to say, okay, this is hibernation season for a lot of people. They're staying in lockdown and doing their things. We had enough cash in the bank to keep all my salaried employees hired and at full pay. And I said, we're going to work for it. So I said, let's turn up the engines and go for it. And that's what we did.
So, David, how do you launch some of those projects? Like, how do they get started? I mean, like, let's just say somebody has like a successful restaurant and they're like, hey, I think I'm ready to grow. I mean, I imagine probably in some cases, maybe they're all different as far as how they happen, but do a lot of times, do you initiate like, oh, I'd really love to do something in Saudi Arabia, or, hey, I feel like Carolina, North Carolina, what have you, would be a great area. Are you actively always kind of looking for places, or is a lot of it just by, somebody reaching out to you that knows you? Like, how do you go out and grow? If somebody wants to do that and they're maybe in a big city and they're kind of ready for those steps.
All of our projects come from word of mouth. We don't look for deals. The deals come to us, fortunately. Saudi Arabia came to me, Charlotte came to me. They all come to us through being out there and doing a good job with our other partners and people and customers, or word of mouth of someone that we might have done business with in the past. So burning a bridge is never a good idea. So we always worked hard. Here's what we can offer. We're honest, which is hard to find. Very honest, very hardworking, and we do what's best for the business and the customer. That's how we operate. And we happen to be pretty good at it. Now, those other qualities are sometimes unheard of, so we want to work with our partners, whether they're hoteliers or office building developers or investors, so that everybody's happy. If I'm making money because I'm taking a management fee and our investor isn't making money, we got to change that, because that's not going to last. Right. It's just, it's stupid to think it is. So we figure out how to keep everybody happy. Sometimes we take a haircut, and sometimes we take a little more. And sometimes I always look at it as a long-term thing. If I'm going to do business with someone, I want to know how much more business can I do with them before I do a onesie. I don't need a onesie. Right. I don't need a one-off. Right. We're very busy for that. So what is the growth potential with that particular corporation or investor and this and that? If we hit a home run, are we going to do three more? If we're going to do that, rather be in bed with people we know and trust and like or not like, but that we know each other, that we can we don't have to go back and fix mistakes.
Right.
Going with hiring our employees or chefs and managers, when you have to go back all the time and fix things, it takes the wind out of your sails. So we need people that are dedicated and want to be part of the organization, as opposed to the cockiness of I'm a great GM or I'm a chef and this and that and the other thing. We sometimes will take someone that writes things down when we speak and wants to learn over someone that wants to come in and be an Instagram guy or girl. And we find some problems with that, with people, the renegade attitude and a lack of real training and understanding in the industry for people that are carrying titles that they not, one person's chef is another person's line cook, and one person's chef is another person's maitre d'. So it doesn't always translate. So, we're trying to hire people that want to be with us for a long time, that have passion and that want to have some fun, because our food is fun. Our culture is fun. We work hard, but we also like to laugh about it, and we like to have fun about it. Like going back to, I was thinking this the other day, when I worked as a line cook and a sous chef or a chef de cuisine, we had fun. We cooked and we had fun and we busted chops and we had a couple laughs, but we learned and we helped each other, and everybody helped each other like a big family. It wasn't, the common goal was to learn and be better than your competitor, or at least get good reviews. I mean, I don't think cooks and managers read their Yelp reviews now or what goes on. It's a different system now with Yelp and all that. But I'm talking about the old days when you went to the New York Times on a Thursday night and waited for the paper to come off the press, because you were part of a team. It was like, that was it. So that's really the contagious part of what it was for me being in the restaurant business. And when I walk in the kitchen in my whites and start expediting or editing and doing, I want to feel that.
Right.
I want to be impressed when I see a dish in one of my restaurants. I want someone, because I hire a guy from Florida. We're opening in Florida in a couple of years. He's moving. So we're bringing people up north to be trained for a year. And he goes, well, what's my job description? I said, well, it's everything a chef should be doing, but the number one thing is for you to impress me. I want you to try and impress me, whatever that takes. I mean, with food, obviously. I mean,
right, yeah.
I want to walk in and look at a dish. We have all of our chefs are part of our, we have a WhatsApp app where everybody posts their specials and their ideas in each restaurant. And so our network now can see what other chefs are doing. And I comment. I love, well, what is this? Why is this? I mean, is it really necessary to put a half of a lime on the plate that's caramelized to garnish something? That costs 50 cents. That costs 30 cents. Is it worth the garnish and the time? If it is, I'm all for it. If it's not,
right.
Let's talk. Or put the sauce on at the table. Pour it on table side hot. Little things that my knowledge and me as a diner, because I'm as much of a diner and a customer, I am my customer. And most young cooks and chefs and managers are not their own customers yet. And also, why put 19 dots on a plate in a kitchen that looks like an operating room with the lighting, when it's going to go to a dark dining room and the customer can't appreciate it because they can't. So there's little details, and let's squeeze the lemons that have the juice. Let's put our effort into what makes sense. So communication is really the key when we expand. And because we're such a good force in Jersey now with 8 properties and a bakery, we now can transfer people. So we have a nice organization where we can promote transfer. And when I have we lose somebody or vacation, we have someone we can bring over and we don't lose a beat. So
wow, that's awesome.
Jersey, we're going to Rhode Island in March. We're opening. We just took over a restaurant in South Orange this past week, and we're opening in White Plains another Red Horse. So Red Horse is our higher end steak concept, which is the restaurant near my home, which I worked at as a kid. We're going to have 3 of those we're going to have one in White Plains next week. Beautiful one. One will be up and opening in Davidson, North Carolina eventually. And that's a concept that we could roll out. Like our goat, we have a trademark on goat pizza, greatest of all time pizza. We trademarked that name 6-7 years ago, and we're building and raising money to do a rollout of, I think we're building one in Cornelius, North Carolina now, near Lake Norman. and we're going to put one, I think, in the Hall of Fame, NFL Hall of Fame in Ohio. And again, we're going to try and build 5 or 10 of these. It's a pizza concept that has the sports memorabilia and the greatest of all time of not just athletes. It could be chefs. It could be the local crossing guard, the local teacher, the scientist, anybody in the community that these goat pizzas land. So we have a couple of little things in the back burner. How we get it done, we get up early and we work hard, and we get it done, and we hire people with the ambition that want to be part of this. We have a corporate office in Charlotte. My business managers are there. They're former sports agents for NASCAR, and there's a couple of those in the office down there, and they're also involved in keeping the eye on the ground, and they're the boots on the ground for our expansion there. And Jersey is home base for me, and New York, obviously. And we're going to stay in this kind of East Coast mentality of being along the coast of, we don't need to go to Vegas or LA or any of those other. I did that already with Smith and Walensky. I expanded. I did the jet set thing. I want to spend time at home now, at my home base, and not at home, but I don't want to fly to work. I don't even enjoy flying to Saudi Arabia. So I don't think we'll do any more international deals because my time is limited in regard, and I don't want to be on a plane. I don't,
Right.
I'd rather open a cooking school here eventually as part of a hotel and get back to training our own workforce through an apprenticeship program in a hotel and teach. I think there's a lot of knowledge I have that I'd like to teach to the people that really want to learn the correct way of doing things. Maybe not the correct way, but at least that makes sense.
Do you travel to the restaurants yourself? Like, do you kind of have a model like, hey, I'm going to hit this one once a quarter, I'm going to go, or I'm going to have a meeting structure, or is it kind of like this one just got open, it needs a little bit more attention?
Kind of like seat of the pants a little bit. I put 1,200 miles a week on my car.
Wow.
So I'm all over the state, and now we're in Rhode Island soon, and we're in White Plains, and we're up in Saratoga. So I'm a road warrior. So I go wherever I need. Sometimes I'll hit 4 restaurants in one day. I don't think that's the most productive use of my time, but
right.
You got to show face. So
right.
I'll drive a half hour just to say hello to a VIP that comes in and spends a lot of money because you know what? That's what I do now. My kids are grown up. I live alone. I work, I'm fortunate that I love what I do, and I still love it. So, and I do the designing now. I design some of the restaurants. The one in White Plains, I did from top to bottom. I'm not an architect. I'm not a designer, but I can decorate. We got a pool table in our restaurant in the middle of the bar area that has our logo on it, and it's called the cool table. So we put wood leaf on top. You get the table for the night. It's $250 a head. You can play pool for an hour. Then we set the table. You eat on it, and then you can play pool after. So we're looking forward to next week. We got a phone booth that came out of my house in there. It's called the cell phone booth. And it's really a sexy restaurant. It's called Red Horse by David Burke in White Plains. So we're having fun with design. We're going to take over another place in Charlotte called the Eagle Tavern. And we're going to operate this club in Rhode Island called the Preserve Rhode Island. It's a sportsman's club and a resort with shooting ranges, skeet shooting, pheasant hunting, off-road Bentley course. So, like I said, things come to us. We have to manage what we can manage. But now that we've got infrastructure in place and that people from the outside and some former chefs and managers see our growth, they're like, listen, I want back in. I like what's happening. And now that we're getting a little bit bigger, we can afford the right salaries. We can afford to bring people on board 6 months ahead of time and get them trained for a project we're doing north of West Palm Beach. It's called Nautilus 220, and we're able to really get some good people. And when you start working with really good people, then you can, it makes you feel better because training and babysitting is not. It costs you too much money and too much stress.
Right.
I'd rather have good people so I can sleep at night, trusting them with my brand and paying them more than trying to squeeze the bottom so much.
Right. Yeah, and I think that trying to make your business like more compelling and trying to attract people is like more important now than ever. And because people have a lot of options with where they can go and work. Like what is it that you do that's going to get them to want to come and work for you? And it sounds like obviously trying to offer competitive compensation, but also making sure that it's fun, that they and you're engaged and creating that culture. It's a place, and then also I think having additional opportunities in the company, it kind of gives you more bandwidth to be able to give them ways that they can kind of learn or be promoted or get different experiences. So I see a lot of value in creating those kind of ecosystems for your staff.
I had an interview the other day with a young guy, really good hands. He's worked for Francois Payard, nice kid. And I said, stay with us a couple of years. I said, if your dream is to open up your own restaurant, we'll back you. Why wouldn't we? If you know our system and you're really good and you're hard worker and we believe in you, we'll open it with you.
Right.
Opportunity for you to keep getting more stock until we're going to be partners. Why wouldn't we want to do that? Why would you want to go take money or be a partner with somebody you don't know?
Right. No, I love that. Yeah.
Now we get things thrown at us all the time. We have an opportunity to take over 2 restaurants way up in northwestern New Jersey. The only problem is I don't have 2 people to put there, a front and back of the house guy. Otherwise, I would say, listen, you guys want to move up, and it's God's country up there. And I said, you can run the place. We'll make your partner because I can't get to it. But, that people that are seasoned veterans that we know about their habits and their work ethic and their passion and desire to succeed. But we have to say no to some deals because we don't have the manpower, and when you see what happened with the pandemic also, and I think you realize this as well, you don't have to work in New York, LA, Chicago, San Francisco, or Miami or Atlanta to get credibility.
Right.
But most young chefs want to work for someone that they have some pride in. They want to be able to say, I work for so-and-so. I work for Emerald. I work for John George. You know what I mean? Right. So that they're in so expanding with someone with good credibility and respect helps them make a decision that, you know what? I know I'm going to learn, which is key to most young chefs and managers. I know I'm going to have some pride in what I put on a plate, and I know I'm going to grow. And I'm going my creativity and my passion for the business is going to be satiated. And if I can grow and make good money in the suburbs and raise a family and not commute to New York City, it's a win-win-win.
Absolutely. David, I'm curious we're opening a concept up in Atlanta, and it relies pretty heavily on a lot of the speed ovens, hoodless ovens, and a lot of electric induction and some sous vide. Are you seeing in New York and in New Jersey, have you seen kind of a push or any kind of issues with gas hookups? And I mean, are you seeing kind of more of a push toward the electrification with any of your existing concepts or new ones? I'm always kind of curious just to see.
I have not seen or heard of that yet. I know there's some really good equipment out there. I love some of the ventless stuff because some of the new buildings, it's expensive to run a hood.
Yes.
But the only thing I've heard is from the politicians about the gas. I haven't heard anything on the corporate side or in the industry about that yet. But I'm all for being able to put a compact ventless oven in some of our spaces to save money and also efficiency.
Right.
And if I had to cook on electric eventually, I figure it out. I like the flame game though,
Yeah, I just updated our kitchen as well, and I had to do that. Yeah. And do you do a lot of the research do you personally do a lot of the dish creations, or do you kind of work with a lot of obviously you have the chefs put up a lot of stuff, but do you still like to really actively hey, something I cooked on Sunday, this actually could work in one of the restaurants?
Well, you know what? When I worked for one of my old partners out in Summer, he used to travel a lot, eat in Switzerland, skiing, and he's always bring me back ripped out pages of magazines of dishes. he never said do it. He just thought, hey, I thought you might find this interesting. We had this. This was great, or blah, blah, blah. So what I do is when I see something online, I screenshot it and I send it to my chefs.
Yeah.
And I'll listen, it's not something, it might not be something new, but it's a nice reminder of something that I think we might be able to incorporate in our way. Could be one of my old dishes. It could be or it could be a dish that's using, an ostrich egg shell for presentation, or something that just looks great and cool, and have sometimes it's pastry. But it does. I don't say put this on the menu. This is food for thought. In regard to opening new concepts, I write menus with my partner chef Carmine, and we give the chefs freedom to do specials in the hopes that some of these things are going to go on the menu. Sometimes one chef might come up with a great dish, and we'll say, "Listen, let's put it on corporate. Let's put it on all the menus that it fits in. Whatever coach can afford this dish, or whatever this fits into, like oysters. We don't have oysters on all our menus because they don't fit in every restaurant menu. And, but when we find a good oyster dish, like I said, if we have oysters on the menu, there should be an oyster special every night. Why wouldn't it? Right? Put a topping on top of a raw oyster, like a shrimp ceviche or something, and charge more money. And it makes it look like you're doing specials. Of course you are, but you didn't have to go out and plan it or buy it. And it keeps your inventory moving. So there's basic things, that people, if you're not ambitious and you don't want to impress and you don't want to show off as a chef, the person out, I don't understand that. If I'm a chef and I get given a stage like the River Cafe, I got to perform.
Right.
This job. How do I become better than the guy before me? How do I drive business? How do I impress my boss? How do I, get accolades? I mean, that's something that, I would remember being a young chef. I'd go in to work early to learn. I would ask, can I please come in and learn how to open clams? Can I please learn how to bone out a leg of veal? Would you teach me? You don't see that as much anymore, if any.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know, David, we're coming up here on an hour, and I know you're a super busy chef and totally appreciate your time. David, if people want to find out more about you, can you maybe share website, Instagram, anything else that you want to share?
Instagram is Chef David Burke. My website is, I guess, David at davidburke.com is my email. davidburke.com is our website, and our company is called David Burke Hospitality Management. And don't be afraid to reach out with questions or follow us or see what we're doing or come visit any of our restaurants. I appreciate it. I've been a fan of yours for a long time, and I'm glad you're doing great. And I'm glad I can fit this into my schedule.
Yeah, absolutely, David. You've always been very.
Look at this. It's Valentine's Day. I'm spending it with you.
Yeah, I know. It's awesome. Thanks so much. You've always been so generous with your time too, and I really appreciate that. And wish you the best of luck this year, and look forward to seeing you in person.
You got it. Bye-bye.
Thanks, David. Bye-bye. Hey, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that episode with Chef David Burke. That was really very inspiring and informative. I haven't caught up with David for a few years now, so it was really cool to reconnect with him. And again, check out all of our sponsors' websites. You can go to also richrosendale.com under podcast. There's a link to everywhere that we have the show available. And if you want to see the video version, you can go to Rosendale Collective on YouTube, and you can watch all of our past episodes. Please like and subscribe to the show. That's what helps us keep it rolling. And we'll see you next week on the Let's Dig In podcast. Thanks so much, everybody.